Welcome to Cyber Bytes, your weekly dose in the latest in cybersecurity news. I'm your host, Edwin Kwan, and this week we're going to be talking about a clear pattern that's emerging across the threat landscape, where we're seeing that AI is now sitting on both sides of the fence. It's helping defenders move faster, but it's also giving attackers new ways to scale, automate, and blend into trusted platforms. At the same time, some very traditional technical vulnerabilities are still doing very bad damage underneath it all. We'll walk through 5 stories that capture this shift, including a major AI rollout that's happening in Australia, a new malware campaign that's abusing ChatGPT links, browser-level protections against session hijacking, and AI support bot gone wrong at Meta. So let's start locally. Anthropic is expanding their Project Glasswing program to include Australian organizations, giving select participants early access to its Claude Mythos preview model. This is not yet general release, access is still tightly controlled, and it's limited to organizations working in critical infrastructure sectors like energy, water, healthcare, finance, and national security. Globally, the program now includes around 150 organizations across more than 15 countries. What makes this interesting isn't just access to another large language model. It's what the model is being used for. Claude Mythos has already been credited with identifying thousands of vulnerabilities across open source code bases, which aligns with what we're seeing more broadly. AI moving into vulnerability discovery at scale. Microsoft M-2, for example, recently found 4 critical remote code execution bugs in Windows using similar techniques. There is a caveat though. Anthropic has said the model is less effective against heavily audited or mature code bases, which suggests it's currently strongest in those wide net discovery rather than deep specialized dive. Anthropic is also warning that models like this will eventually become widely available and that threat actors are already experimenting with them. So that shifts the baseline. If attackers can scan and analyze code at scale using AI, defenders need to match that pace. So for Australian organizations in critical sectors, early access to these tools isn't just a nice to have. It's a need to, and it's essential for staying competitive in a rapidly changing threat environment. So from defensive AI to offensive abuse, researchers at Push Security have uncovered a malware campaign that uses ChatGPT's conversation sharing feature as a delivery mechanism. So on the surface, it looks pretty simple. Attackers create a ChatGPT conversation that contains a fake outage page, something that looks like a legitimate service disruption notice, and then distribute the public share link. The key detail here is trust, because these links sit on OpenAI's domain, so from a user's perspective, they look legitimate. And that's what makes them far more likely to bypass both human suspicion and some security controls. Once a victim lands on the page, they're prompted to download what appears to be a fix or an update, which is actually malware. Now, we've seen this pattern before with platforms like Google Docs, Dropbox, which were used for phishing. But these AI platforms add a new layer. People are still building trust with these tools, and that trust is now being exploited. It also highlights a gap in how organizations treat AI services. Many security controls don't yet classify them as high-risk content delivery platforms. The practical response here is pretty straightforward and very important. You need to treat AI-generated links the same way you would for any external content. Don't assume legitimacy based on the domain alone. From a security team perspective, this is a good time to revisit web filtering and your user awareness training to explicitly include AI platforms in the threat model rather than treating them as neutral tools. Now, To some positive development on the defensive side, Google has rolled out session cookie theft protections to all Chrome users. This directly targets one of the most common and effective account takeover techniques that we're seeing today, the pass-the-cookie attacks. Session cookies are what keeps you logged in after you have authenticated. If an attacker steals that cookie, they can often bypass controls such as MFA because from the system's perspective, the session is already trusted. InfoStealer malwares has made this kind of attack increasingly common, harvesting browser cookies at scale. Now, Google's approach is to bind session cookie to the device where they are created. That means even if a cookie is stolen, it can't be reused on a different device. It's a relatively simple concept, but it closes a significant gap that attackers have been exploiting for years. What's notable here is the decision to roll this out broadly rather than limiting it to enterprise users. And I believe that reflects the reality that these attacks are no longer targeted. They're being used at scale. For organizations, this reduces risk at the browser layer, but it doesn't eliminate it. Stolen sessions can still be abused locally, and info stealers are still a major issue. So while it is a strong control, it should be seen as just one layer in the broad defense-in-depth strategy, and that should still include endpoint protection and strong authentication practices. The next one is a reminder that AI doesn't remove old problems. It often reintroduces them in new ways. Hackers recently exploited Meta's AI support bot to take over high-profile Instagram accounts, including accounts that link to Obama's White House and the US Space Force. The attack itself was pretty low-tech. Instructions circulated on Telegram that showed how to use a VPN to appear near the target's location. And then it initiates an account recovery process and manipulates the AI support bot into linking the account to the new email address. Once that change was made, the attacker could trigger a password reset and take control of the account. To Meta's credit, they responded quickly, they patched the issue, and they confirmed that there was no backend breach. But the root cause here is worth paying attention to. The vulnerability came from inserting an AI layer into account recovery workflows, the processes that are already high risk and heavily targeted for social engineering. AI support bots are designed to be helpful and responsive, which makes them susceptible to the same manipulation techniques used against human support staff. The difference here is scale and consistency. Once a method works, it can be repeated quickly. There's also a clear defensive takeaway. The attackers themselves noted that the exploit didn't work against accounts with multi-factor authentication enabled. And that's consistent with what we see across most account takeover incidents. MFA remains one of the most effective controls available, even as attack techniques evolve around it. So if you don't have it enabled, please do so right now. Finally, a more traditional vulnerability, but one with serious impact. Researchers have disclosed a critical denial of service issue known as HTTP2 bomb, and it affects major web server implementations, including Nginx, Apache HTTPD, Microsoft IIS, Envoy, and Cloudflare's Pingora. The vulnerability combines a compression-based attack with a connection holding technique to exhaust server memory extremely quickly. The technical details matter here. The attack abuses HTTP2's header compression mechanism, known as HPAC, by sending very small units that expand into large memory allocations on the server and then preventing those resources from being released. An attacker can consume massive amounts of memory with minimal bandwidth. In testing, a single machine on a standard 100 megabit connection was able to take down a server in seconds. In some cases, a single client could consume up to 32 gigabytes of server memory in under 20 seconds. What makes this particularly challenging is that it bypasses existing protections designed to stop earlier compression attacks. It's not just a variation, it's a new amplification method that existing limits don't catch. Now, patches are available for some platforms, and this includes Nginx and Apache, but not all of them. Microsoft IIS, Envoy, and Pingora remains unpatched at the time of this podcast. And for organizations running affected systems, the immediate mitigation is to disable HTTP 2 if patching is not possible. What ties all these stories together is the pace. AI is accelerating both discovery and exploitation. While underlying protocols and infrastructure weaknesses continue to create high-impact risks, the organizations that adapt quickly, whether that's adopting AI defensively, tightening controls around new platforms, or responding rapidly to emerging vulnerabilities, they are the ones that will stay ahead. The rest will find the gap is widening faster than expected. And that's it for this week's Cyber Bytes. I'm Edwin Kwan, and I'll see you next time.